for the president's long-sought but never found evidence of widespread voter fraud now extends beyond the state of Georgia. The director of national intelligence has now also seized and tested voting machines from Puerto Rico for vulnerabilities, though it's still not exactly clear why. What is clear is that it's unprecedented for the director of national intelligence to play such a hands-on role in the infrastructure of U.S. elections. That's according to former intelligence officials and election experts. It's also clear that the administration has had difficulty explaining why the DNI was there on the ground when the FBI recently raided that elections warehouse in Fulton County and took those ballots. When it comes to who exactly asked Tulsi Gabbard to be there, the level of finger pointing has almost taken on a Spider-Man meme-like quality. Just hear me out. Initially, the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, was asked why she was there, and he said this.
I don't know why the director was there. She is not part of the grand jury investigation.
That's what he said. And then 5 days after that raid happened, we heard from Gabbard herself, who said this order came from the president. She wrote a letter to Congress and told lawmakers that, quote, my presence was requested by the president. It was stated very clearly. And at the White House, we also heard from the press secretary, who cited the president as well when someone asked her why someone, as Gabbard is, in a role that doesn't include law enforcement responsibilities, would be involved in an FBI search.
Why was Tulsi Gabbard involved in a domestic law enforcement search in Georgia?
Tulsi Gabbard has been tapped by the President of the United States to oversee the sanctity and the security of our American elections.
But when the president himself was asked why Tulsi Gabbard was there, he did not echo that at all.
Why is Tulsi Gabbard there?
I don't know, but you know, a lot of the cheating comes from it's international cheating.
So Tulsi Gabbard said that he requested her presence, and when he was asked, he said he did not know. Less than 24 hours after the president taped that interview at the White House, he then pointed to the Attorney General, Pam Bondi.
She went in at Pam's insistence. She went in and she looked at votes that want to be checked out from Georgia. They say, why is she doing it? Right, Pam? Why is she doing it? Because Pam wanted her to do it.
Do you see what I mean now by the Spider-Man meme? They're all pointing at one another. We heard from a spokesperson for Tulsi Gabbard who told CNN there is no contradiction in what you just heard there, despite the fact that it does seem on its face contradictory. That statement that she posted, by the way, to Twitter is actually no longer there. My congressional source tonight is the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Virginia Democrat, Senator Mark Warner. And thank you, Senator, for being here. I mean, just hearing that alone, is it clear to you who sent Tulsi Gabbard to Georgia?
You know, Caitlin, this sounds to me almost like Nixon-esque after the Watergate. People can't get their story straight. They're lying. You know, and it begs even the original question is why in the hell is the President of the United States aware of a search warrant being ordered in Georgia? So if he told her to be there, he knew about this beforehand, which, by the way, is exactly the kind of activities that got Richard Nixon in trouble. And then we put a whole series of reforms in place in the 70s. And now it appears that, you know, Trump is once again maybe throwing her under the bus, because it's pretty clear she wrote in testimony to the Congress, the press secretary, she was asked to be there by the president. Now maybe he's seeing it smells bad and he's trying to move the blame. But this kind of, you know, is back to the 70s. If the cover-up is worse than the actual incident, although in this case, as you pointed out, the director of national intelligence has absolutely nothing to do with domestic electing and a criminal domestic charge. And if there was any foreign interference, informed. And I think what I fear, Caitlin, is that here's a guy that was obsessed about losing in 2020, obsessed about losing in Georgia. And I believe they may be intending to interfere in our elections in 26 and 28. And I think we all have to step up our game, take all of this, and then you add in the president saying he wants to federalize elections and have Republicans take control. This isn't the way the system works.
Well, on the midterms, are you worried about the White House intervening or the president himself intervening in the 2026 midterms?
Caitlin, a year ago when people brought these, what I thought were wild theories, I kind of said, that's a little far-fetched. I'm worried. The activities of what they did to dismantle many of the protections that were put in place, frankly, in Trump 1, cybersecurity protections, the FBI had an active effort about protecting our elections, the ODNI, Director of National Intelligence, they've been dismantled. We now have these claims by these rogue actions of the Director of National Intelligence. We have these conversations of federalizing elections. And then people will say, well, Senator, why would having an ICE agent show up at a polling station if we're all registered voters? Well, first of all, we know there's been racial profiling towards folks, particularly of Latino heritage. We know that there are certain times mixed families. But what we've also seen, and this ought to scare the hell out of all of us, is that ICE is collecting information on American citizens. And, if you show up at your polling station and ICE could come up and say, we know you, Caitlin Collins, we know you've got a parking ticket. Will that scare you away from voting? For many folks, it will. And this is not hypothetical. We've seen in Minneapolis an American citizen have her effort to get a global entry pass, something that you get from TSA to get faster through the lines, rejected because ICE had evidence that she showed up at a protest exercising her First Amendment rights. You put ICE at polling stations, you put this manipulation of voting machines, you put the president directly intervene in the judicial process in inappropriate ways, and this is a stew that could wreak havoc in our system beyond the fact of him blatantly saying the quiet part out loud, we ought to federalize elections and Republicans ought to take control of it. Yeah. Yes, I'm very worried about what happens in 26.
Well, and again, the White House is very dismissive of the ICE thing, but obviously we'll see how that plays out. You mentioned that whistleblower complaint, and just for everyone to know who has not been paying that close attention to this, it was filed against Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, back in May. You said it was heavily redacted when you saw it this week. Your colleague, the Republican, Senator Tom Cotton, said he found it to be not credible. I think some people may say, well, how do we square those two things? If it's heavily redacted, how do you find it to be credible? Or if it is heavily redacted, how can you say it's not credible? I mean, what should someone else think? Well, what an objective party would see that?
Well, let's take a couple pieces here, bites at this. One, it's classified, and I'm old-fashioned. I don't think you should reveal classified information. But it was so heavily redacted, I can't make a judgment. What I can make a judgment on is that this whistleblower came forward in May. The law states very clearly that when a whistleblower brings a complaint forward, you basically, and they want to come to Congress, you've got 21 days to do that. That didn't take place. Matter of fact, Congress was not aware of this complaint until November. And then it took the combined work, and Tom Cotton was part of this, and Mike Johnson, the Speaker, and John Thune, all of us working together to say, hey, you got to share this with us. It still took another 3 months. To make matters worse and to show the kind of ineptitude, you've got Tulsi Gabbard saying, even though she swore before our committee that she would honor whistleblower laws, that she didn't know she had an obligation to report this. And we've got her lawyer on testimony yesterday saying, no, he had shared all of these responsibilities with Ms. Gabbard about the time of the whistleblower being in middle of June. So people are either lying or covering up. And all of these incidents combined together, and you have what I find to be incompetence at a level that makes Americans less safe. And you have attempts to cover up what appears to be information that they don't like. And then when there is responsibility, when Ms. Gabbard says, no, it was the president told me to go to Georgia. When she says that, then you've got somebody lying because they then change their story again. But this is a pattern that we have seen over the last year that really, and I'm pretty calm about these things, makes me really concerned about the security of our elections in 2026.
Yeah, a sobering statement. Senator Mark Warner, thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Up next, investigators believe that Nancy Guthrie is still alive, why they feel that way, and our expert sources are going to break down what these ransom notes say about Bitcoin and why that matters.